a very warm welcome to Manchester on this special occasion. The inaugural lecture of Professor Dawn Edge, and also the first event of the University Manchester Festival. 4 days of special events to celebrate 200 years since the founding of our university. A university set up to be a civic university, a university set up to meet the needs of the people of our city and region, a mission that is still really, really at the core of what we do and believe in. And I'm Professor Andy Brass, and I have the honour of being the Vice Dean and the head of the School of Health Sciences, the part of the university where I have the honour of Dawn working. Before I go any further, I just have a formal announcement I need to make. As you may be aware, there are ongoing protests taking place on campus in Brunswick Park, and we are not anticipating any disruption at today's event, but we've done a full risk assessment, and we do have help if we need it. So if there is any disruption, please be calm, as we do have protocols in place to deal with it. And what we do is we'd let facilitators have a say, and then ask them to, after they've had a say, then to leave. That's the way we'll be handling. So some of you might not be completely familiar with the way that a university works and some of our more arcane processes and ceremonies. So you may be wondering, what is an inaugural lecture? Because it's probably not the first lecture that Dawn has ever given in her life. An inaugural lecture is an opportunity for us to come together as a community to celebrate the success of a colleague in reaching the highest level of academic distinction. Over the past 200 years, we've had a lot of inaugural lectures, but even over that history, this event is special. In her talk, Dawn will focus on one of the reasons why this is special and something that we're so proud to be hosting within the school. And why she's a pioneer. The second relates to the way that this ceremony has been organised and the, shall we just say, the power of Dawn's personality and vision. So, to be honest, I don't think you've ever had an inaugural organised quite the way that this one has been. So it's really designed to reach out to our whole community in a way that inspires. So genuinely, universally Manchester, and I'm really just excited to be a part of this ceremony. So I think my formal part in this process is to give a short introduction as to why, as a university, we are so proud of Dawn and why she is so deserves the honour that, well, she's earned. So Dawn, I was going to tell you a lot of this anyway, but Dawn is a professor of mental health and inclusivity at the university. She's also the university's academic lead for equality, diversity, inclusion, with agreement for matters of race, religion and belief. And the reason I've got this written down is Dawn has done so much stuff that unless I actually wrote it down, I wouldn't be able to remember all the different things that Dawn's involved in. So her work is very much around tackling health inequalities by collaborating with marginalised communities to co-produce solutions that improve the health, well-being and access to evidence-based holistic care. Dawn has a background, I think, as a chartered physiotherapist, I think, right, and research training in medical sociology, a really interesting and unusual combination. And she's an established leader in the field of interdisciplinary research, focusing particularly on the intersections between ethnicity, gender and mental health, and I know you're going to say a lot about that. So Dawn has played a significant role in the work which has resulted in the university being awarded a Silver Race Equality Charter Award, I think one of only two at the time awarded in the UK. Her personal values underpin her commitment to public service. She's using her knowledge, her expertise and her lived experience to eradicate inequalities in health and education, bringing her expertise in these areas to the academic and wider communities. Her research aims to reduce inequalities in mental health experienced by underserved communities, particularly people of African and Caribbean origin, and to strengthen research policy and practice links between health, social care, local government and the communities we serve, generally trying to pull it all together. So, with its clear focus on policy and improving service delivery, her research has really improved understanding of the needs of patients and carers, particularly those from marginalised and underserved communities, and influenced service development and delivery regionally and nationally. For example, her pioneering work in perinatal depression has been cited by the Race Equality Foundation as influential in developing Department of Health guidance on integrated working between health practitioners and defining pathways for mental health and well-being of pregnant and early postnatal women. She's so many things to list. Non-executive director of mental health and community NHS Trust. She's used her research to strategically influence integration of EDI, promote delivery of accessible healthcare. She's used it in all sorts of areas to fulfill, to help people fulfill their public sector equity duty and to provide effective, harm-free, person-centred care. Another page done. She's partnered with Big Life and Sure Start to free school in Lonscott you've been involved in. So there are so many examples of the different ways that Dawn's work has really contributed widely to society. I'm just going to add a few more. Invited member for the review of mental health from the Prime Minister. You've fed into that. You've worked with the Church of England Synod on EDI. You've worked with Greater Manchester Fire and Rescue Service. You've worked with Greater Manchester. A lot. She's now recently been invited onto the board of governors at the Health Foundation, whose work is to improve health and reduce inequality. So a really powerful place in which to influence what's happening across our region. However, there is one more important thing to say. Dawn is a pioneer, yes, but she also works to support and enable others. She is doing so much across our university to ensure that people from all backgrounds can succeed here. That's really important. Yes, she has trailblazed a path, but she's tried to make sure that there are routes for others to follow. So you are the first, but you're not. You are going to have so many more to follow. So, as a university, we are committed to world-class research, teaching, and social responsibility. Yeah. But as a School of Health Sciences, why does that matter to us? Why it matters is because of really at the heart of what we do, the reason we all come into work is because we want to make a real difference to real people. That's what we care about in the school. And Dawn is someone whose whole career has embraced those values. Everything she does is genuinely making a real difference to real people from across our community. So before we move on to Dawn and the inaugural, I'd like to invite David. Yeah, okay, so, yeah. So there's going to be some things happening now. Yep.
Tissue at the ready.
Anyone here?
Yeah, everyone here? Okay, great. Okay. Oh, wow. We're here. I'm not sure if I'm using clicker.
Technology, yeah.
Technology is not working.
Oh, come on.
It's gone to sleep.
Not sure.
Okay, that's fine. So it's really a delight to be here and to see you all. And I can hear myself echoing back. Is that okay? Okay, great. Thank you all so much for being here. It's a really special day for me and hopefully for many of you for whom it is truly unique. So let me move on to this. And it feels like I'm going to need some help here because it's not working. I don't know what's going on here.
I'm sorry.
There's something that's not.
If you just do the right one, I'll get you.
Do the right one. Okay, great. So looking at you all, I feel like going to church. It feels like. So let me start with this because this is really how I feel, that this is a day that I never thought I would see, and I'll explain why in a moment. So this is a quote for those of you who don't know where the Psalms are. It's in the Bible, and it's from Psalm 118:24, and it just says, "This is the day that the Lord has made." And so we come here today to rejoice and to be glad. Oh, got too far now. Okay. So many of you will recognise this gentleman. He's Professor Sir Arthur Lewis. Like me, he's from the Caribbean. He's actually from St. Lucia, what we Jamaicans call one of the small islands. So big. And he has the distinction of being the first ever Black professor in the UK. And it was at this university, as you can see there, in 1948. And he was no slouch. He was 33 years old when he became a full professor back in 1948. And then he went on to become the first Black man to get the Nobel Prize for economics. But in between, he did lots of other stuff. So whilst he was in Manchester, one of the things that he did is he kind of looked around and saw what was happening for poor people and people that looked like him. And so he established a fund which set up the South Hume Education Centre, which many of you will know now as the West Indian Sports and Social Club. Okay, but he set that up because he saw the importance of economics underpinning the way communities could be mobilised and mobilise themselves to make a difference. And that was 71 years between Arthur Lewis and me becoming a professor. So it's kind of, so why was that big gap before there was a Black woman? So that Black man, so what, 71 years. And so that's really what we're going to talk a little bit about. But I think before we do that, just talk about a couple of life-changing moments for me and why somebody said to me, I thought you were a professor a long time ago. Yeah. So there are reasons why it's taken a little while for me to be here. And actually, frankly, I might never have been here. So this is me in 2019. So we're going to need the tissues. So in 2018, I was diagnosed with a life-threatening condition. So this is me in ICU, and I literally got the last bed before COVID overwhelmed the NHS. I literally got the last bed at Withenshaw Hospital. So had that not happened, we wouldn't be having today. The other thing that happened around about that time was that I went to Ghana. And I'm hoping you can see that over the door there, it says the door of return. But this was originally called the door of no return. And that was the last thing that enslaved people saw from the Slave Coast, Elmina Castle, where they were kind of corralled, they were hunted down and brought together and kept there sometimes for years in this prison, in the castle. And the last thing they saw before they were loaded onto ships to go across the ocean was their store. So I went and visited that, and as I stood there, something changed for me, because enslaved people, when they were taken away, whether it's to the United States or to South America or the Caribbean, like my family were, They were not allowed to read and write. Being found to be able to read and write was punishable by death. It was the death sentence. So for the child of an enslaved African down the centuries to be standing here as the first Black woman professor is something truly remarkable. And I think it was standing. Growing up, and historically, and maybe still now, people from backgrounds like mine were taught to actually be ashamed of having been enslaved, which is quite ironic, isn't it? Because it's not the enslavers that were taught to be ashamed, it's the people who've been enslaved and treated like bought and sold like chattel. We were just things to be bought and sold. And on that day, as I stood at Elmina and looked out at the sea and thought, oh my God, can you imagine what it was like to see that? A lot of people had never seen the sea, but they were then going to be piled onto boats. And then, you know, I'm sure you've all seen the images or routes or movies where people are literally packed on top of each other and sails off. And, you know, if there was bad weather or whatever, they would be dumped like cargo at sea in order to recoup the money from the insurance companies. And my ancestors survived all of that. And so when I stood there, it was like I had an epiphany. And I kind of threw off all of this shame and stigma of being enslaved. I thought, actually, no, I'm here because I was intended to be. And so with that came this poem that I've known, and there's many of you are clapping because you know it. And I've been to see Maya Angelou perform it, and I recited it myself. Kind of came alive, and someone asked my good friend David Lewis Peart to come and perform that poem for us. And David epitomizes so many of these people who have shared this journey with me, serendipitous and really strange connections that have brought us here today. So David, over to you.
Isn't she awesome? And aren't we awesome?
Yes.
Yeah.
Amen.
You may write me down in history with your bitter and twisted lies. You may trod me in the very dirt, but still, like dust, I rise. Does my sassiness upset you? Why are you beset with gloom? Because I walk like I got oil wells pumping in my living. Did you want to see me broken? Bowed head and lowered eyes. Shoulders falling down like teardrops. We can buy my soulful cries. Just like moons and like suns, with a certainty of tides. Just like hopes, springing high, still all rise. Does my haughtiness offend you? Don't you take it awful hard? Because I laugh. Because I laugh. Like I got gold mines digging in my own backyard. You may shoot me with your words. You may cut me with your eyes. You may kill me with your hatefulness. But still, like life, all right. Does my sexiness upset you? Does it come as a surprise? That I dance like I've got diamonds at the meeting of my thighs. Out of the huts of history's shade, I rise. Up from a past that's rooted in pain, I rise. I'm a black ocean leaping and wide, welling and swelling. I bear in the tide, leaving behind nights of terror and fear. I rise into a daybreak that's wonderfully clear. I rise. Bringing the gifts that my ancestors gave. I am the dream and I am the hope of the slave. I rise. I rise. I rise.
This is where it began. In this little place, you see a little circle, Jamaica. This is where my little journey began. In a place called St. Catherine, to be precise. So not Kingston, like most of you have heard of, but St. Catherine, way, 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 way up in the bush, literally. And from there to the UK. So because there are people watching this in other parts of the world who don't have a clue where Manchester is. And there it is in Greater Manchester. And this is me. I know, I'm like cute. Truly. So there is me, age 11. You can see the little passport stamps. That's a photograph of my passport. And that's me just before I was handed over to a stewardess to travel on my own the near 4,500 miles from Jamaica to England to rejoin my parents, mum, and my dad, who, like thousands of Caribbeans, had left before to travel to a place that they didn't know. It wasn't like now when you could Google it and find out what it was like. As you can tell by my mum's outfit, and a lot of the women came like that. They wore their linens and their gloves and their crinolines because they had no idea what they were coming to. That was them. And they came, like so many other people, they came to fill the labour gap that was left, not just by the war and the death of white British soldiers, but also the mass migration of white British people who were left with a decimated, ruined country. And they went off to places like New Zealand and Australia and Canada. And so the people that were needed to rebuild it were people that looked like my parents and people from other parts of the Commonwealth. So that meant that I left this and exchanged it for this. And where I come from, fried fish looks like this. And then here I am, and I'm like, what is this? So I quite like it now, but yeah, it was a bit of a shock. Real culture shock. And it was, and I was shocked that I was shocked because the Jamaican education system, the whole system, the legal system, everything, like many former colonies, was very much built on a British system. So I knew when I came to England, I was really shocked that children in school couldn't recite Wordsworth, because I didn't know who Kipling was, because I did. So I was really shocked by how little of the place I actually knew, because what I knew was a very sanitized version. I've never lost my fascination for snow. I saw it for the first time at age 11, and I've never lost my fascination. But you know, snow's beautiful, but it's also really cold. And when it freezes, it becomes really dangerous. And so I know I didn't face the kind of overt, in-your-face, no dogs, no blacks, no Irish signs that my parents did. But I faced a kind of racism that was much more subtle, but no less isolating and devastating. And so one of the things that happens within communities who face those kind of challenges is a silencing of the shame that we've internalized, that I mentioned earlier on. So we didn't talk about it. Nobody talked about the name calling at school, or that nobody would invite you to their kids' party, to their children's birthday parties, or nobody talked about it in our communities, or certainly not in my home. And I know it's the same in lots of others. And very quickly became clear that despite having, excuse me, I can sweat. having been invited to come to the UK, including by people like the famous Enoch Powell, actually came to the Caribbean to recruit people to come to the UK, that Paul Gilroy was right. There ain't no black in the Union Jack. But all of that, for me, once I began to kind of see the injustice of it, just really, really lit a fire in my belly about the unfairness. So inside of me, there's still the 3-year-old, you know how they do, it's not fair. Yeah, there's still that little 3-year-old shouting, it's just not fair. There are things that aren't right. And what can I do about it? What am I going to do about it? And in the first instance, because I was quite into sports, I was school games captain, I used to be a Sale Harrier, I was a sprinter. And so I went into becoming a physiotherapist because I liked people and I liked medicine, you know, and like learning stuff. So that's me. So that's another place where I was first and only. It's been a bit of a pattern. And I really enjoyed being a physio. I loved it. I specialised in cardiothoracic. So actually, ironically, in the same place where I had my life-saving surgery, I used to work there and work on some of those wards. And then I moved from there into higher education because I wanted to be able to pass on some of the skills that I had to more people so that they could help more people. Because by then I was specialising in neurology and I headed up the physio in a neurology unit. And then I started thinking about what to do for a PhD because I realised that in order to get on, I probably needed to have more than a first degree. And I really wanted to do something that wasn't just going to be a book, a big book that sat on a shelf somewhere. I wanted to do something that's going to make a real difference, as Andy said, to real people. And so coincidentally, I was co-opted onto the board of trustees of African and Caribbean Mental Health Services in Manchester. And that was an organisation that was formed specifically to address the inequalities of Black people in mental health services. And that was in the 1980s. And I have to say, things aren't a whole lot better. And so from that, I started thinking, well, what can I do for that's going to do anything about these inequalities that I was hearing about when people were telling me their stories? So as a board of trustees, I would meet with service users and they would tell me some of the harrowing stories. And one of the women who really inspired me was somebody who was no longer here with us, sadly. Her name was Jennifer. And she'd had really severe postnatal depression. And because of that, the child had been taken into care and just really very, very difficult circumstances. And that made me think, how come I don't know any Black women who have had postnatal depression or at the very least who talk about having had depression? And so that then became my journey. And I can see over there, you can see Anne. So you'll see Anne Rogers' name up there. So Anne was one of my PhD supervisors along with Debbie Baker. And we did this work, which, as Andy said, nobody else was doing. Nobody else was really that interested in Black women's mental health. This was before 5 Times More campaign that some of you will be aware of, and you know the real highlighting of the inequalities that Black women face during pregnancy and in early motherhood. Nobody was doing it. And so that's where I started. I wanted to do some work that would actually give a voice and try to explain why some people who, it can't be that Black women, I kept thinking, it can't be that we don't get depression. That's just ridiculous. It's a universal condition. So why is it that there's nobody, not just in the research, but actually turning up to see their GP and being diagnosed with depression? So that's where that work started, really. And that underpins the work that I do, that kind of talking to people, hearing their stories, and their stories becoming data, their stories becoming evidence that we use to change services. And that led me to being invited by the Department of Health to do a piece of work looking at what happens when women who are pregnant or who have small babies or infants go into prison. And that work is still ongoing. And another thing that's really key to the work that I do is working, as Andy said, with communities and taking very much what I call an assets-based approach rather than deficits approach, seeing communities as having strengths, as seeing as individuals as having strengths. And that's paper that I'm really proud of. that are co-authored with Paul Gray. So some of you will know Reverend Gray. He's a minister in the New Testament Church of God, of which I'm a member. And he gave the keynote at the very first community conference that we did, looking at mental health in Black, Asian and other minoritized communities quite a few years ago now. And he was somebody with lived experience of schizophrenia. And that's really was where some of the work about psychosis started, those community conversations about mental health and the disparities and what we could do about them. So, can we have a sip? So some of you will know this stuff, but let me just, for those who don't, about what sometimes has been called the schizophrenia epidemic. So if you are Black person in the UK, your risk of being diagnosed with schizophrenia is significantly greater than any other ethnic group. So in comparison with the white British people, if you're of Black Caribbean origin, that includes people of mixed and multiple heritage. And bear in mind that when we're talking about people being diagnosed, we're talking about people who are Black British by and large. You know, the vast majority of people who are now in mental health services are not people who are Caribbean or African. They're actually Black British people. So it's about 7 times as likely if you're of Caribbean origin, and just about 4 times, although depending on which numbers you read, it may be as high as 6 if you're of African descent. And alongside that disproportionate rate of diagnosis, we have much, much worse care. So from the outset, the way people get into services, so much less likely to be referred into services by a GP, and much more likely to come in through the criminal justice system, including being sectioned involving the police, are 4 times as likely as a white British person. And once in services, the care we receive is much more coercive, so much more likely to be held in seclusion, to experience control and restraint, to be forcibly injected, much more likely to die as a result of some of those techniques. Lack of access to psychological therapies, and worse, much worse clinical and non-clinical outcomes. So if you're a Black person who goes into a psychiatric hospital with psychosis or schizophrenia, you're likely to stay in about 2.5 times longer than a white British person. And when you're released, you're much more likely to be released on what are called community treatment orders, or CTOs, which means that you can be brought back at any time if you breach the conditions under which you were released. Yeah. And interestingly, we're often labelled as hard to reach. We'll come back to that again maybe in a moment. And so maybe it's not that we're hard to reach. Maybe it's because people have a real reason to be fearful based on those stats that I shared and what happens to people in services. If your son or daughter is unwell, do you really want them to go to a place where they're much more likely to die than other people, or to experience care, which is really almost barbaric when you think about what we're doing to people in some of our services? So that means that people delay getting in touch with services. Also the fact that some people just don't know what some of these things that are happening to people. So just for those who don't know, the peak onset of psychosis is in the mid to late teens to early 20s. And for those of us who've had teenage children, these are difficult times, right? So these are times when young people are going off, storming off to the rooms, locking themselves in, experimenting with all kinds of stuff, like we didn't. Anyway, moving on. But obviously some of that, sometimes what young people are doing is self-medicating. And people don't necessarily understand that. Parents don't understand that. So if your perception of why your young person, little Johnny, he was a good student, doing really well, and suddenly his grades started slipping, he's not talking to anybody in the family, seems scared all the time, whatever else. And you think then that something is wrong. You don't necessarily think it's medical. You might think it's something else. You might think it's something spiritual, and that he's been possessed by demons, or somebody's put a curse on him, or that you just got in with the wrong crowd. You might not think it's anything that requires medical intervention. So that will delay the access. And then obviously by the time people get into services, that means that their symptoms are going to be much more severe and much more long-standing. And that partly explains why they're much more likely to get coercive care. Not entirely, because we know this is where the intersection with race comes in. So I can't see Gilroy, but I've got a really good friend, Gilroy Ferguson, who wrote a paper back in the 1970s about the big black and dangerous phenomenon. And that's how a lot of people, black people in services are perceived. Anyway, I've already mentioned the longer length of stay, but all of that puts pressure on the families. There's a lot of conflict often within families, and that can actually expedite family breakdown. And that matters because when people are isolated from their families, mental health is actually worse, and they're much less likely to get the help that they need. So it becomes that vicious circle. And NICE, so National Institute for Health and Care Excellence, recommend some things that we ought to do to improve the care of people from ethnic minority backgrounds. And one of them is to work collaboratively with groups like African and Caribbean Mental Health Services and others to make sure that we co-produce psychological therapies that are culturally appropriate and that can be delivered by competent practitioners. NICE also recommend family intervention. So working with families, so not just working with the person who's got the condition or the symptoms or having these experiences, but understanding that people live within communities, within families, and that's really important to work with the whole families. But I've put that at the bottom because NICE recommendation is for people in regular contact with their families. So I just want you to think for a moment about some of the people who might not have regular contact with their families. So if you're a care leaver, if you're bereaved, if you've lost your family through accident or illness, if you're here from a faraway country. So there are lots of people who don't have contact with their family. And that would mean that under normal circumstances, they wouldn't be able to receive family intervention. And on this slide, I've tried to encapsulate what I've talked about, the co-production journey. So now co-production is a bit of a buzzword, and lots of people are talking about co-production. When I was doing it, people were going, what are you doing? Why are you going to church to talk to people? But church was a place where back in the 1960s, when my parents arrived from the Caribbean, it's not, and they still aren't, and still aren't now, only places of worship. They're also places of activism and support. And so there are places, so even though now we're a much more secular society and lots of people like my children don't necessarily go to church, lots of people in communities will see what is called the Black majority church or the Black-led church as places of safety, places where they can go to get help. And when I was doing my PhD research and I asked women, Black and white women, where would you get help if you needed it? Only what the Black women talked about, faith and going to church. And those were when I asked them about that, they said, did they go to church? A lot of them didn't, but they had a belief that if they turned up at church, somebody would help them. So that's why we started those community conversations in church. But just on that slide, you'll see that there's lots of stuff where we involve people, not just in shaping the research that we do, so they help to shape the research question, the design the research, involved in its management, all the way through to come into conferences to present the research and writing some of those papers. So it's just a full journey. So out of all of that work, we ended up with 10 sessions of culturally adapted family intervention, or CAFI for short. And maybe the most important thing about that slide is number 2, which is shared learning. Because when we were doing the work with both with service users and carers, and as well as health professionals, one of the things they said is that what is normally called psychoeducation in family intervention, we need to change that out, not least because psychoeducation, just the phrase itself isn't particularly helpful, but also to acknowledge that within therapy, in order to create genuine therapeutic alliance, the therapists were going to have to learn stuff from the families, as well as the families learning stuff from the therapists. And so it was a shared endeavour, and so it was deliberately called out. So we ended up with very much a hybrid form of therapy. So we started off with something that was CBT based, so cognitive behavioral therapy based, but then had lots of elements around communication and advocacy, the things that people said were really important, and a real focus on assets in the communities and drawing those community strengths. So do you remember I mentioned about the nice guidelines about being in regular contact with your family in order to be able to access family intervention? One of the things that we did was we recruited people. We asked people who wanted the therapy, first of all, if you want therapy and you don't have regular contact with your family, you can nominate somebody. Because many of us know that we've got friends who are like family. We've got friends who are family. Okay. And so people could nominate somebody to take part with them. And if they had no one, then we went out to communities, and I have to say that we had Asian people, we had white people, we had mixed heritage, we had black people who signed up to becoming what we call family support members. And they came into therapy and worked with service users who wanted therapy. And we can have a whole conversation about whether it's family intervention, if it's not your family, but that's another for something else. The other thing that was really important is that people said it's not so much the therapy, that needs to change, it's the therapists and the way therapy is delivered. And so this is the work that we did in working with Iaba, who's over there in just psychology, to actually develop training with the service users, with carers, to help the therapists to understand family dynamics and so on, and culture. And then we also developed a therapy manual, which is standard for delivering therapy. But in ours, we talked about some of the stuff that I started with, about the history of how people came to be in the UK in numbers. So we've known that Black people have been in the UK since Roman times, but in the numbers in which they came to be here, when it became seen as being really problematic for lots of people. And so we talked about all of that. So for those who are interested, you can follow by watching. There's a little film of that's from the different perspectives of some of the people involved in the feasibility study. And then we had a little feature on Granada TV News, so by all means watch that. And on the basis of that initial piece of work, we were awarded £2.5 million by the National Institute for Research, and we to develop what is called a randomized control trial. And that is to compare CAFE, our therapy, with usual care. And we wanted to do that nationally. We wanted to do it in Manchester, and in Birmingham, and in London, and down south. Okay. And so these are some of the challenges. So we got the money, and it was all great. And we were due to start in 2020, April 1st was precise. So of course there was nothing happening. So we went into lockdown, and then the whole thing was deferred for 2 years. And when we came back, as you know, we're still feeling the effects of the pandemic and other things on the NHS. But that meant we really struggled to open sites, because there were some sites where the researchers were not even allowed to go onto wards. They were not even allowed to go into services because people were trying very hard to minimize the impacts of the pandemic. Because of issues around staff shortages, we found it really difficult to actually engage with staff. So people who've been really supported in the feasibility study, we now couldn't actually get to them. And because when you do research, you can't just rock up and talk to a service user and say, do you want to take part in my research? Because that might be quite coercive, right? So you have to do it through their care team, who also have to be sure that the person is well enough to take part. And we couldn't do that. We really struggled to get to engage with people. We also found that there was a lack of psychological therapists. It was really difficult to find them. In one of our largest trusts, in one of our sites, there was not a single band 7, so that's the kind of entry grade post doctoral clinical psychologist, not one. So that meant we had to do different things. And so we did a whole lot of work going outside the NHS to bring in people from like counselling, psychology backgrounds, different backgrounds, working with the Black and Asian Therapy Network, or BATAN, some really great people, Karen Carberry at the Association of Family Therapists, some fantastic people who helped and supported us to do it differently. But the NHS isn't really set up to work with that kind of difference. And so we really struggled to get those people over the hurdles of being, assessed and all kinds of the training that they had to do, which was completely irrelevant for the work we wanted to do, but they had to do it anyway. Anyway, all of that being done, and with all of that work, the funders decided that despite our best efforts, they were going to withdraw the funding. So that's why, as of November of last year, the study closed to recruitment. We're still working with families in therapy, and we're still doing all the follow-up assessments. And that was despite the fact that they talked about this being really important work, and the fact that we recruited nearly half the sample. And importantly, you see, going back to that family support members, about 60% of the people who took part needed somebody other than a family member to take part. So what we were trying to do was doing lots of the things that the NHS have said that they wanted to do for a long time, which is to do new ways of working and open up different pathways. But that doesn't really work very well with the research model that we currently use. So some of the implications of that for lessons learned is that, if we want to deliver psychological therapy in a multicultural, multi-ethnic context, then all the stuff, the buzzwords that we use about individualistic and holistic and person-centered and needs-led, all those things sound a bit hollow when you start to look at what we actually deliver, which is very much still a one-size-fits-all model. And the fact that the system is not really set up to doing things differently. And we need to even think about some of the language that we use and some of the terms. So who is family in the example that I've just used? And, what is mental? What's the sign of mental illness to you? Might be a profound spiritual experience to me. And we need to find other ways of talking to people about the experiences that they have and how best we can help them. And that might not always be medication. I'm not saying that shouldn't be part of the mix, but it might not always be, and certainly not the only thing. The other key thing that I think is really important for us is the NHS workforce issues that I've already mentioned. So the way the structures are set up that are real barriers to diversity in the workforce, particularly in psychological therapy delivery, and the training that we deliver to people. So I think it's really scandalous that you can qualify from publicly funded programs that will take people into working in multicultural NHS and social care and really never done any work about working with diversity and difference. You don't have to do that. So if you happen to be in a course where people are passionate and they introduce it, or you go on placement and people do it, then that's great. But it's not actually a requirement of training programs, and I think it should be. And just to put that into context, what I was saying about the therapists and the lack of them. So over nearly 27,000 UK psychological therapists, 84% of them are white, 5% Asian, 3% mixed heritage, and just 2% are Black. So if you're going to work with people from a range of different backgrounds, then everybody's going to need the training, aren't they? You can't just train up Black people to work with Black people. That's just not going to work. Or Asian, that's, And that means that we talk a lot about cultural competence. You see this written a lot. And I'm not convinced that it's possible to become culturally competent, whatever that means. And just as an example, whenever I go to Jamaica, they go, English girl. I go, no, I'm from here. They go, yeah, but you don't live here. Right. Because they can tell. So, and that's my culture. That's my cultural heritage. But I don't really belong there as far as they're concerned in some ways. So we need to accept that we're not going to become culturally competent, but what we can be is culturally humble, is acknowledge what we don't know and acknowledge that other people have things to teach us and enter into relationships and dialogue with them from that position of humility and willingness to learn. And I mentioned the systems and barriers. Oh my goodness. That could be a whole other lecture in itself, but we really need to do something about this if we are serious. So for example, we've got one of the things that made me so sad when we did the first study and we looked at people, we asked people about their background and how they come into services. And about 2/3 of the people who took part in that study became unwell when they were at university or college. These were highly intelligent people who were going to go on to make a contribution. but that journey was cut short and they've never been able to go back. So they've been lost. Their potential contribution has been lost in society. And I think we can do some stuff with people like that. You know, we've got a fantastic colleague here at the university, Eleanor Longdon. Many of you will have seen her on TEDx and so on. And she's a lived experience practitioner went on to then get a clinical psychology doctorate and works now in research. So it's possible to work with people who've had psychosis and use their experiences and that of their family members in ways that will help the workforce issues in the NHS. But we need to find ways of making that possible. Andy mentioned the research to practice to policy gap. We've been doing this stuff. The stuff about psychosis and Black people has been around for 60, 70 years. It's not new. We've known those numbers for a long time. What we've never seemed to do, which is the point at which those community conversations, what we didn't have were any solutions. So all the research were about the numbers and about the problems, but there was no kind of, so what we're going to do about this collectively. So I think that's something that we really need to look at. And then this last bit, you know, going back to this about, you know, the funding being withdrawn. So, you know, I totally understand that funders have a responsibility. You know, the National Institute for Health and Care Research, they're funded from the public purse. And so they have a responsibility to make sure that money is being spent wisely and well. But there's also something about how you compare research and how you judge what is success and what isn't. And if you're really wanting to do something that's groundbreaking and different, you're going to have to accept that it's not going to, you can't fit it into the same model that you had. You can't fit that square peg in the same model. And so at the moment, you'll see everywhere there's research about the stuff about researching underserved and underrepresented communities and doing things differently, but we're actually still largely using the same model. So it's questionable how much progress we're going to make. Still, we rise. So despite all of that, we're not giving up. So we are just launching a project where we're looking at the feasibility of implementing CAFE in social care settings. And for that, I can see Yasma. Where is she? Oh, she's there. We've got Yasma to thank for that. So we're doing some work around CAFE, and she said, what about social care? All the stuff's about NHS. What about people in psychosis who are living in, you know, in housing and homes and various things in social care settings? What about them? So that's where that's come from. So we're just at the start of that. And see, I'm wearing a Jamaica top today. So we've got some money from a pot that's administered by the university but funded by the Wellcome Trust, and we're looking at the feasibility of delivering CAFE, a digital form, an online version of CAFE in Jamaica as a precursor, we hope, to taking it into other low resource settings. Because one of the things that we know, and you know, the World Health Organization has written about this, about the mental health gap, but there's a huge gap between the global north and the global south. That in the global south, there are very few psychological therapy practitioners, and where they do exist, they tend to be in large cities, in the capital and maybe a couple of others. So in rural communities, no. So places like where I came from, no. So but if you can use something digital, then actually a therapist in the UK can deliver therapy into St. Catherine, or somebody in Kingston can do it, and somebody in the UK can do it into Lagos or somewhere else. Okay, so that's where we're going with that. It's quite challenging, so we have to pray for us. So that brings me to we're coming down now, so it's Black women in academia. And I just wanted to share this slide. So I'll just give you a moment to look at the numbers. So when it's got one of that sideways on V, it means less than. Okay. So the top line you'll see is for Black female professors. This is at this university, and you'll see it's less than 5, meaning 1. Okay. And so readers are kind of the next level. So there's readers, senior lecturers, and again, less than 1, less than 1. And then when you go to like researchers and senior research fellows, none. Okay. But if you look at the overall figure, as bad as it is, it's bad for Black women, but it's not a huge lot better for Black men, actually. And currently, there are 6 of us professors at the University of Manchester of African descent, and that includes people who would self-identify with mixed heritage. There are 7 of us in total, and that's the highest number in any one time there's ever been in the history of this university. 7. This university, in this one. So across the UK, there are 23,000 professors. There are 66 Black women professors out of that. Okay, when you look at that number, at this university, over 5,000 academics, only less than 100 are Black. So we've got a mountain to climb. And it's important that we do some work around this, because it's lonely. It's a lonely place being first and only. You know, and I said this to somebody a little while ago, actually, when I was at Bradford. You know, people see the glory, but they don't know the story. They don't know what got you there. And Nicola Rollock did some really groundbreaking work at this, interviewing Black women in academia, and told their story, and then founded around that an exhibition called Phenomenal Women, of which I was privileged, along with Udi, to be represented in an exhibition at the South Bank Centre. But for every Nicola, for every Udi, there's some casualties. So some of you will know this person. Do you know who this is? So this Harvard professor, Claudine Gay, who's been all over the news, and she was the first ever Black person to be the president of Harvard, and first woman, Black woman. And of course, she started that job, and within 6 months she was gone. Yeah, mired in controversy about plagiarism, and then a stance on Gaza, and all kinds of other things, but she was gone within 6 months. And this is Dr. Antoinette Bonnie Candia-Bailey, who took her life earlier this year. So she died by suicide after being let go from her post. She has filed complaints about being harassed and bullied against the president, who was then investigated and brought back, and she died. So, if we're going to do something about bringing more people into academia, more Black women into academia, we've got to do better at supporting them. And that's why I am really, really, really passionate about this program. I'm proud to be the champion of it at the University of Manchester, and being one of the people who contributed to the design of the program. And this was a group of people who, during the pandemic, we all had a bit of a hiatus, didn't we, when we saw the terrible murder of George Floyd, and because we're in the pandemic, I think a lot of people for whom it might just have been a news thing, we were paused long enough to go, oh my God, and start to look at other things. And people who had never talked to me about race ever suddenly started asking me for recommendations about books for themselves and for their children, and how they could talk to their children about race. And that included mixed heritage, people from mixed families who never really had those conversations, didn't know how to begin them. So at the University of Manchester, we are one of a handful, literally, of universities that have signed up to the Women in Higher Education Network program. And this is our current cohort. And I know that there are some members, 100 Black professors, women out there. I can see some people. Woo, woo, woo. There we are. The recent, so the person in the middle is, for those of you who don't know, is Professor Dame Nancy Rothwell, who is the Chancellor and Vice President of the university, so the boss. Okay. And as I say to people who are in the cohort, there are people who will come to the university, who will work here. Some people come as students, and frankly, they never leave until they retire. Can you believe that? Anyway, but they do. And they will never meet a member of the senior leadership team, let alone the vice president. But as part of this program, the cohort members have an opportunity to meet senior leaders and to meet the vice president herself, and to spend time with her, asking about her career journey and any top tips and so on. And so the reason I think this program is really it's so important is because the emphasis is on fixing the system and not fixing the people. So a lot of programs. So programs which set out to tackle inequalities, you know, whether it's around people with disabilities, or whether it's gender or whatever else, the answer is we'll send them on a training program. We'll give them some, you know, we'll give them some mentoring. We'll do, and those things are absolutely fine and needed, but they're not the answer, because even if people go on those courses, they acquire all those skills and they come into an environment which is not supportive and not nurturing, then they're not going to thrive, are they? Okay. And you also mentioned that we got the Race Equality Charter Silver Award, and became, I so really wanted us to be the first, but we weren't. De Montfort University became the first to get a Silver Race Equality Charter Award. It's an award externally by Advanced Higher Education, but we became the first Russell Group, so that's our claim to fame. And when I was asked to lead it, I said I would do it on condition that we were clear that we were going to go for silver award. So we'd already had 2 bronze awards. So Patrick, I'm not sure if Patrick's here, I can see Sarah. Hi, Patrick and Sarah. Led us through 2 previous bronze awards. But for me, going for another bronze award was tantamount to saying we're fine with where we are. And the difference between those bronze awards and a silver is that the silver award actually says we need to see evidence of impact. So you can't just be talking about the things that are wrong and some programs that you're putting in. You actually need to show that they make a difference. And so I was delighted to be able to say in our submission that this institution has a commitment to becoming an anti-discriminatory and anti-racist organisation. That's our public-facing commitment, and you've all heard it here. But you can go on the website and read it. That's what we're aiming to do, and that's all about changing the environment so that people like these young women here on this 100 Black women professors, and the ones who are coming behind, can have the hope of being successful. So as I'm coming down now, lessons from my journey. Told I used to be an athlete, and so I had to sneak a picture in. I didn't think you'd really want to see me in my running shorts, so but that happened. So this is a message really for junior colleagues. And the first thing is know your values and your value. So know what are the things that you absolutely will stand by no matter what. No matter what. The things that are your core values that are unshakable and are non-negotiable. But also know your value, know your worth. And I keep, you know, some people might smile when I say it again, because a lot of the work that we do around diversity, equality, diversity, inclusion, people don't want to pay for it. They just assume that, you know, I don't know. I don't know what they think it is, but they don't see it as being something of value. And so my good friend Jackie is over there saying, no, they've got to pay. That's what the mantra that Jackie's taught me. No, if you want me to do that work, it doesn't come for free. And Sharon, another one, it doesn't come for free. You need to pay for it. It's expertise. So know your worth, know your value. Use your networks. Okay, and I know that I wasn't very good at this. I'm still a little bit not as good as I could be. Sharon is a past master, mistress. And it's really important to know that you can't do this journey on your own. You can't, like a relay, you cannot run it on your own. Okay, so you need other people around you. So you need networks of different kinds of people, not all people that like you, and people who will be allies, strong allies, people who will talk about you when you're not in the room, so sponsoring you, people who will open doors for you rather than shutting it in your face, people who will hold your hand, people like some of the folk in this room who will sit with you with a biscuit and a cup of tea and some tissues when things are really bad. And humility and grace. So there's no shame in asking for help. There's no shame in saying, I don't know how to do this. So that's really important. And being grace and having grace, which means that we have to be forgiving. Which is not to say that you let people trample over you. But there's something about understanding that not everybody knows what it's like to walk in your shoes. And there are some people that you'll never teach because they don't want to learn. But there are some people who are really interested and want to learn and want to do better, but they need some help. Self-care. So this is another one from Jackie and Maria over there. Taught me the value of self-care. So I was blessed to go away on a whole week's women's retreat in Jamaica recently with these two wonderful women. And so self-care is vital. And I use the word vital, meaning life-giving. You need to do it. I need to do it. I need to be better at doing it than I am. But we all need it. And it's not selfish, it's self-full. You have to take in, you're giving out all the time, so you have to fill up again. That's one of the ways you do it. Love. So surround yourself with people who love you unconditionally. That may be your family. I've got some of my family up here. It's wonderful to see you all. But sometimes it's friends. It's the people who will supply the tissues, the coffee, the Prosecco. That's what we mean. The people who are going to be there, and the people who will tell you the truth when nobody else will. The people who will say, like my friend Pat, but you look a bit tired. What's going on? People who will tell you about yourself, as Pat would say. So you've got to have that too. So this is for the senior leaders among us. What are you doing to nurture people who are coming behind you, to make sure that there are people to whom you can pass the baton? And the people in your team, do they all look just like you? Do they all look and sound just like you? Or is there diversity? And if there isn't, what are you doing about it? What will you do about it? Because every one of us in this room has a responsibility and has a duty to make a difference. And every one of us can, including the youngest among us. So it's wonderful to have a whole group here from Trinity High School. I'm so glad that you made it. So yeah, give them a round. But wherever you are on the journey, you've got something that you can offer somebody else. So you're in high school, but there'll be children in sixth form, but there'll be people in primary school. Yeah. Okay, so I've dropped the baton now. It's okay. See, I dropped the baton, but somebody picked it up. They picked it up, and they treated me with grace. So what I'm saying is, it's really important. So you can then think about those young people in year 7 and up, and maybe people in your family, in your community, or even at primary school. What can you offer them? What lessons can you teach them from your journey that might help them? What are the things that you know about study skills and revision and all the things that got you to sixth form that they don't yet know? And maybe there's nobody in their family that can teach them, but you could. Okay? Wherever you are. And just simple acts of kindness and asking people about where they are and how they're doing. So my next door neighbour, my children were calling it Auntie May. Auntie May looked exactly the same from when we moved into the house. So 20 odd years later, when she died, she never changed. But when I was doing my PhD, she would say to me, "How are you getting on? Have you not submitted it yet?" She used to be a school teacher, and that never left her. But people like that, and Deacon Ruddock, I can see him up there, who he and his wife used to always say to me, "How's it going? Keep on going, keep going. You'll be all right." My pastor is up there, and he would always talk to me and pray for me. And there are these people who are really important. And so they may not be doing what you're doing, but you'll never know the value of the word of kindness that you drop. And by nurturing those saplings, maybe, just maybe, what you're doing is pouring in the water, providing the microclimates, doing the work that's going to nurture that little sapling to grow into something magnificent and unique and special. And maybe, just maybe, the work that you're doing, and it might not seem like work, it might seem really, really insignificant, but maybe it will mean that you will be able to enable some little girl or some little boy to become something that they never thought they could be, a history maker. Wow. No, I need it. So the question there was, are you happy to speak without the mic? I said, no, I need it. Wow, thank you so much. Don, what can I say? Thank you so much for allowing me to be part of that journey. I don't know about everybody else. I have my own tissue as well. That was fascinating. So what I'm going to do is just following on that footsteps. There's a theme from your talk that I've followed through. And remember, I haven't shared anything with you. The fact that I woke up first thing this morning, I send you a WhatsApp message and say, this is the day that the Lord has made for you, Dawn, and that we are going to rejoice. And that was your first slide. It's just so magnificent. The other thing is the fact that I turned up in Manchester colors, except the green. I did think about getting something Jamaican or no, whatever, but you know. Okay. So I wanted to look at Dawn's journey and really qualify it, because what she has done has been to navigate our racialized academy. That is what you have done, Dawn. So I thought the best thing to do would be to just amplify it, celebrate you, and give all of us some little advice. I may say so. So I'm going to briefly give the context, and Dawn has already done so, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time, but I will really focus on celebrating you, talking about the consequences of forging that authenticity that you've just shared with us. And then I'll be calling us to think about some actions. So you've already got this. About 22, 3, 4, 5 professors in the UK. And remember, one thing with statistics is as the numbers are going lower, you stop using percentages. Okay. Some of you in the room, please help me. If you're a quantitative researcher, it gets really odd to keep using percentages when you go below a particular percentage. So 66 Black women professors in the UK. I know my number, really do know my number. And if you ask nicely, I'll tell you number 8. And then 4 have retired, so I'm now number 4 going up. How sad, how sad, how sad. Don, I used the stats from your rec submission because I wanted to pick something evidence-based, but it's really sad to see that you've gone from 110 to 95 Black academics and researchers.
but you've gone up by two more Black professors, but you still have one Black woman professor. I do really want to agree with Andy when Andy said you're not going to be the only. Never. You've already talked about Sir Arthur Lewis, and we know you. But there's something that for me is the theme, the underpinning thing there is about you guys being role models, someone people admire and try to imitate. You may not know this, not many people will walk up to you, Don, and say, you're my role model, but they're watching you, they're learning from it, they're imitating. Many of them are in this room, some of them are outside of this room. But it's really interesting to know, though, this is a challenge for Manchester University. 200 years, one Black female professor. And we can't even put a percentage to it. Okay, right, I'm going to leave it there. But Dawn, some work that was done first started in North America and then repeated by colleagues, Carol Campaign and co here in the UK, looking at different women and what they bring into leadership. And they've got the 8 factors. I use it a lot to describe me, but when I was looking at you, and you've already told us a lot of things, you fit so nicely in those 8 factors, the things that define you as a leader. And I want to pick on the bit about your faith, because one of the things that we do as academics is we try and operate in a world where we pretend that there's nothing that contextualizes us as people. But one of the things that I really adore about you, Don, is the fact that you own up to. Because when you own up to your own identity, you will respect other identity around you. So thank you so much for that. I don't know how I got the photos. Honest to God, we have not, none of us have spoken about this. She's so surprised. I told her I want to surprise you. I don't know how I located that photo, Don, let's over here, but it's all over the internet, so I picked it up. Okay, so I picked it up. And I want to tell you that you haven't given us all the story, but the journey has not been linear. It's been, do you know there's something about roller coaster? Because it's windy, but there is always somewhere that you can jump off, but you haven't, you've stayed on. Well done. When I was thinking about this, I thought about different levels of pulling people up. You've stood on different shoulders. You continue to stand on shoulders. But when I was looking at different elements of standing on shoulders, you have the one, this is why I go with the white figures where you stand as one, but we have many standing up there to a point where we have a lot up there. That is the model that I think will happen here, but you have stood on shoulders, but you have also given your shoulders for people to stand on. Thank you so much, Doc. But there are consequences though. And this is why I want to talk about those consequences. The emotional labor that comes with the work that you've been doing, Don. Where we've seen and heard you talk about intersectionality of those multiple challenges as a Black woman, because you've got the intersectionality around race and gender. You've had to balance academic demands, and in that process, you're also helping those who expect you to help them. So the minoritized people who look up to you. You've had to weather the pressures of the organization and the profession versus being so authentic in pursuing leadership that is different from your white peers. You've advocated and amplified the voices of minoritized people and all. And there's this big thing about the burden, that emotional labor and the burden of that black tax, the inclusion tax that comes with everything that you've been doing. I know for sure that you have had to think very seriously about the expectation to code switch, and I know you're so authentic and you will not buy into that, but that is something there as a consequence. I know that when you are in a position that you're in, there is this notion of being seen as a trespasser. So some of the work that Elijah Anderson has done in the States, looking at being black in white spaces, some people deny that academia has moved on. No, it hasn't. Even universities located outside of the UK, in my country, Nigeria, and so on, are white spaces because the context of oppression has so held in those colonial hierarchies. So being seen, perceived as and feeling as a trespasser, I know comes with a lot of burden. And the last bit there is having to contend with hypervisibility, you know, being the only one in that school. And sometimes people say, when you are in that position, nobody sees you. What a lie. Because you stand out so interestingly done. Again, we haven't had any, we haven't talked about this at all, but I picked something from Maya Angelou. Like moons, just like moons, and like suns with the certainty of tides, just like hope springing high, still you rise, dawn. I know I haven't sounded as a person who did it at first, but that was my own approach to saying it. What is happening here is we've got a colleague who's continued to forge her own authentic path. But we need to balance that with two things. Do we value the success of others? And how do we learn from them? Because that is what will define us. But there's something else that we need to think through. What if there are no shoulders to stand on? Just think for a minute. What if there are no shoulders to stand on? How do we create those shoulders? What do we do to support and bring about shoulders to stand on? So we are fortunate there is one here. And that those shoulders from Dawn. We really need to think through how do we value these successes, but how do we ensure that the lessons from Dawn, as she has shown us, is left there and always thought through. So we need actions at all levels. If you think about how inequalities are created, there are three overlapping factors. So you've got the individual factors, and I've represented it with a very small box. And then you have institutional structures, you have organizational culture, and those are massive. And what we do is we spend time, and Dawn has already mentioned this, fixing the individual when we know that the individual factors that leads to the experiences we have are so tiny. And what I'm advocating is, can we stop doing it in that way? And let's start thinking about how we fix the numbers, improve representation and participation. We need to start thinking about how we target biases, how we enhance diversity perspectives of everything we do. Success, for me, would mean that we are delivering value, that it is going to be part of our business. It's not going to be add-on. Success will mean that we move from the minimalist approach that is offered by legislation, and that we will be delivering to raised expectations, because there are many people who've been waiting and waiting on us to do it right for so long. A whole systems approach is what I'm advocating. And I am a nurse by background, so I work a lot with C's and B's and V's, and my 6 C's that I'm offering to you is, yes, let's have the commitment, but the commitment must be followed with understanding and action. And we need to do it collaboratively, and it has to be genuine collaboration. So Dawn showed us the work that she's been doing in co-producing. I mean, there are a few terminologies that I pick up and I look at and I think through: co-production, co-creation, co-design. Oh my goodness. But what does it mean in reality? How are we genuinely collaborating with all in this process? Communication is key. The confirmation bit is that humility that Dawn talks about. We need to get to a point where we actually say, yes, there is a problem that in 200 years of Manchester University, we've got one woman professor. So that's humility. And we need to get to a point where we genuinely say, we must do something about it. I thought it was my phone. And we do need to celebrate. But there has to be something about continuously evaluating so that we can improve on stuff. So the call to action is that we all in this room must demand this accountability. We must stop peppering over these cracks. You know, I'm going to really mess your whatever up now. So think about this. When we use nappies on kids, okay? When they poo, what do? Take it off completely. We don't pour talcum, perfume, cologne on it and put it back on. This is what we have been doing. It is time to demand from our systems, from our leaders, that there's something stinking, because we continue to pour powder, cologne, perfume on nappies that we have pooed on for this long. So it's time to just take it off, put it somewhere and get clean ones in. It's about dismantling. We've got to deconstruct to be able to pull it back together. This is my call to action. And this is what we need to be saying to our leaders. It stings here. The reason is because in our humanity, when people poo, some of us in healthcare, we take the dirty nappies out. My call to action is, can we do that with this one, please? That is my call to action. So I'm returning to Maya Angelou. The diagram there is to say, please, can we get to a point where we're not going to have the lone person trying to pull everybody up? Can we get to a point where we have many of us up there and in a position to pull others up? Remember what Maya Angelou says? If I could give you one thought, it would be to lift someone up. Lift a stranger up, lift her up. I would ask you, mother and father, brother and sister, lovers, mother and daughter, father and son, lift someone. The very idea of lifting someone up will lift you as well. And when we do that, we are going to be in a position where all of us here will matter. We will all be significant in our humanity. We will feel appreciated, valued, and included in everything that we do. And that's when we will all win. I'm going to end on this note, Don Ubuntu. You are because we are. If we are all in our humanity and we're taking part in it positively, we're challenging our leaders to take off the dating nappies. We're going to get to a point where we all belong, we will thrive, and with Ubuntu, we will all make a difference together. Thank you so much for giving me this.
I'm just going to very quickly say thank you. It's a bit scary, sorry, but you've given us a lot to think about. I've already learned so much from Dawn about so many different things, and that journey is continuing. I just want to say, before we come to close, I need to say a few thank yous. First of all, to Dawn today for her talk. It's amazing. So thank you very much, Dawn, for that. And then I'd also like to say thank you to your contribution, to Sam, if you're still here, helping with the photographs. David, that poem, thank you. That was really good. That was. There are three people I'm going to thank who won't make sense just yet. Kadria, Aidan, and Tyndall. I'm going to say thank you to those now. And then the other people are. There's a lot of organisation gone into this. So, Anne-Marie over there and Sharon, who put a huge Hugh, who's helped with the AV, to our amazing sign language interpreters at Samantha and then Sydney and Emily, who sort of helped out. But I'm now going to ask Dawn to come back.
So Andy did say it was going to be inaugural with a difference. Am I going to get you to sing for your supper? But before I do that, I just wanted to acknowledge a couple of other people. So I've just seen, so I've said hi to Anne, but I'm sure I've seen Jenny somewhere. There she is, Jenny Pope. So Jenny, when I went into academia, I had a wonderful line manager called Jackie Amelia. And Jackie was the first person that said to me, do you think you could, consider doing some postgraduate work, PhD? I'm saying, what is a PhD? I don't even know. Anyway, and so she sent me to go and see Jenny. She said, Jenny will tell you, she'll tell you what you need to do. And she did, and she helped me to get my first fellowship that enabled me to study for a master's, which Jenny supervised, and with a distinction, Jenny, before passing me over to Anne and Debbie Baker for my PhD. So just going back to that, that whole notion, there was a proverb, isn't there, an African proverb we talk about it takes a whole village to raise a child, and there are lots of people who've contributed, and I needed just to say, so I didn't realise that Reverend Graves up there, so I mentioned in the poem, but also, people I talked about family, and they're here, so my brothers and sisters are here, but also, I've got some great friends. I've got the two Sues up there, right-hand women. And Lisa's one of those people, when I came out of hospital, she said, as soon as you're able to drive, to be in a car, I'm coming to get you. And she took me to home for a weekend, her and her mum, and she said, right, you sit there and you don't move unless you want to go to the bathroom or go to bed. That's what you do. And it's nurtured me over many years, and many other people have here in this room. So I don't call you names because I'd be calling you all. So just thank you all so very much. And now it's over to Andrea. Kadra will direct you. All right, thank you all so much. So I think the next thing is that we're going into GMAT Farland, which is downstairs. Somebody will show you the way.
Food and drinks.
Food and drinks. So you sing piece like a book, then we do feed. Thanks.
Oh, what a moment. I want to thank Dawn for the journey I have taken. I'm one of those statistics right at the very early of her message that doesn't actually have a percentage. I am mixed race. Mom's from Yorkshire and my dad is from Yemen. They met at the steelworks in the 1950s, so something like that. So my journey was started off by Dawn asking me to put together a singing program for people with mental health issues, their carers, and also as practitioners. And that went on for 7 years. And then I was at a loss, out of my comfort zone once, and another phone call bringing me out of my comfort zone another time. And that was to work with people who were going through dementia and their carers and also practitioners. And at the time, my family were losing my dad to dementia. So, you know, sometimes you pray for something to happen, but when the phone call comes, you're like, yeah. And then that was another comfort zone that I had to step over. And another call came 2 weeks ago. This is my comfort zone. Another comfort zone stepping over. So I'm going to ask for your help. We're singing something inside so strong. For those of you that know it, please sing it. I was hoping the words would be up there, but they're not. But just sing with me. Most of you are from choirs. Yes? A lot of you. I know you're from church, don't hide. Don't hide. I'm raising life. Yeah. Most people, this is my phone. I'm on the phone. It's so this is something that was for us. So we can keep the social beauty. Oh, I'm still echoing.
Sorry, my fault.
Okay, and he was also brought up in New Testament church. Yeah, and stuff. So it's been a long journey together. So I'm just going to sing something inside so strong. Please help me. Here we go. Yay! Singing behind you built your barriers. Yeah, you need to sing those barriers now. Here we go. You can't deny me. You can't decide to turn your hands away. No matter what, something inside so strong. Know that I can make it. You know that I can make it. But you are so wrong. Because my pride was so oh no. Something inside so strong. Oh, something inside so strong. I see some familiar faces that used to sing with me. Why refuse? I refuse to hear my voice. The louder I will sing. You're riding on walls of Jericho. Behind my place in time, you swung the world and sky. My light will shine so brightly. It will find you. Something inside so strong. I know that I can make it. Though you would be wrong, so wrong. You're not proud of storm. Oh no. Something inside so strong. Oh, something inside so strong. Brother, sister, not good enough, not good enough. I'm gonna do it anyway. I'm gonna do it I know I can make it. So don't sit down. Okay. So in my concerts, I don't can't do a concert unless I have a little bit of reggae. Okay. Yes, I come from a different culture, but This girl from a different culture loves to dance. So we're gonna do a medley. Yeah, probably Jamaica's most renowned reggae artist, Bob Marley. I can't go home without doing Bob Marley medley. Yeah. So all of you, I don't care how you dance. We all have our different rhythms. You dance with your hands, but you sat down, you dance like this all the time. Yeah. So this song is a one love medley. Medley. Okay, here we go. Come on, man. Want to join me? Come and join me, yeah?
Start heading out for the food if people want the food and drink. The follow through.
Can I just say, if anyone doesn't want to use the stairs, this is a better door to go out on. If you'd rather not use the stairs, go through there. Otherwise, if you go through this exit, we'll go and get some food and drink. If you'd rather not use stairs.
Just take it really
I don't know if you heard me before, but if you'd rather not use the stairs, this door over here is a better exit. Whereas if you're okay with the stairs, you don't mind, then that's an option as well. But I'm going to head over to the Jean McFarlane building for something to eat and drink.